Now, let's get into that Fang experience real
Yeah.
quick, man. So one of the big N in Fang,
Yeah.
or Mang as you call it, Netflix. How did that come about?
Yeah. So Netflix left Atlanta, as I mentioned earlier. I was very intentional. I had this roadmap of one. My foundation was support. I knew I wanted to function through support. I knew I wanted to get into IT management. Primary reason for that was I wanted to provide more opportunity for Black people. I didn't see a lot of us. One of my first managers, which I want to talk about as well, to manage the conversation. One of my first managers was a Black man. Really inspired me in a lot of ways. But got to Georgia Tech, got that experience, right? Got to the startup, got that cloud and SaaS app experience. From there, I'm like, yo, pinnacle, top of the top is Silicon Valley. Was very intentional trying to get out to the West Coast. Made it out there. It was a weird transition too, because in between the time of me quitting, which goes back to the conversation we were just having about the mid to late stage startups, right? I got the offer from Netflix, right? That was November or December of 2019, kind of going into COVID. Got that offer. Found out I had cancer, right? And I called the recruiter back, and I'm like, I need some time to decide if I'm moving forward because I'm waiting. I just found out I got cancer. I'm just waiting, to see what's going on with that. She's like, oh yeah, take a week, or so. But in between that, once I accepted the role, had the surgery or whatever, thank God, there was nothing left. I didn't have to have any additional stuff done there after that surgery. But after the surgery, accepted the job, we was in line getting my meds after the surgery, called my potential manager back, and I'm like, I want to go into management, like IT management for sure. Like, and I'm looking to, when I come, I'm looking to gain X, Y, and Z experience because I already had a roadmap, right, that I wanted to work towards there. So accepted that job at Netflix. We planning to move out to California from Atlanta. Had to start out in the Bay, move out to the Bay from Atlanta, and I called my manager at the startup, and I told him like, hey, sorry to let you know I accepted another role. He was like, oh, thank God. Because we were just about to reduce IT. I'm like, it's only me and one other person. What y'all mean? He was like, yeah, man, we're looking at some additional venture capital money, and they already have their own IT team, and they come in and they implement things in a different way. So all of the work that you were doing was along their roadmap of their attaching to their tech stack. So Okta, for IAM, right, attaches to, from a multi-tenant organization perspective, right? They have Okta in place because they manage multiple orgs. Jamf, they're 100% Mac, right? All of that stuff. So I'm like, dang, it's crazy. God gave me another opportunity.
Was that going to break you off with a severance or something?
No, bro. So oddly enough, right, that when I told them that I got another opportunity, and that I'd be leaving, I gave them the date or whatever, and I was still in between with that insurance, bro. They were in a situation where literally the HR person came back to me and tried to negotiate my insurance with me. She was like, okay, you can stay on paper, right? We still got some work for you to finish up. We need you to, they wanted me to create like a documentation binder or whatever of everything that I was doing and working on and stuff to hand it off to the venture capital firm, which I did. But they viewed that as the severance. So that went on like another 2-3 weeks. And they're like, we'll let you stay on. I'm like, I gave y'all I told y'all I'm getting ready to go or whatever. So they viewed that as a severance. Two, no, they wouldn't plan on giving severance because once I got out I was working for Netflix, 2020, right? And they started laying people off. And some of the people that were reaching out to me were like, yo, of any jobs out there? They only gave us 2 weeks severance. So they probably would have gave me the same or less, in that regard. But it was really good that, God had that lined up like that because I was like, finna get laid, unbeknownst to me, finna get laid off. And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, these are multi-year projects, that I'm working on, but I was speeding through them. And I think the reason they were, happy about that in a lot of ways is because like, all right, this guy's speeding through this stuff and it's also speeding up our timeline to be able to attach our business to this venture capital firm and then, eyeball a percentage exit, right? So anyway, got out to Netflix as a result of that. The interview process at that time was hard. One thing I use that, right, as an example when I talk to kids or college students specifically that are going into corporate America. That interview for me was really about standing out, right? Beyond what you could see, me just being this Black dude, right, from Atlanta, I wanted my experience to shine through, but something else that I've learned along the way is really beneficial to be personable and likable. So one thing that I did in terms of standing out, I had in-person interviews. They flew me out, which was great. Loved it. Flew me out, put me in a nice hotel, whatever. And the night before the interview, I was in the hotel and I came up with this idea. I had wrote out cards, like personal cards to each person thanking them. And the recruiter had already kind of gave me the breakdown as to what we'd be talking about. She was like, this person is going to talk about tech stuff. But in that, I photoshopped myself. The Netflix mantra thing is like the dream team, right? So I grabbed a photo of Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson as a dream team, and I can send to see the dream team photo when they had their arm over each other, and I put Netflix logo on Magic Johnson head, and I put my head on Michael Jordan, and I was like,
funny.
yeah, I see myself joining, this is me joining this dream team, and I wrote a personal note to everybody. They were like, yo, that was a really good touch. So I always advise people to try to stand out in any way that they can.
See, I be trying to do that, but every time I do a thank you or something like that, I be like, yeah, we moving on.
Yeah.
It's only worked for me like a couple of times.
Yeah. Now, man, and I don't know if it was you I was talking to or that I texted about that or whatever when we talked the first time, where it's like, yo, the interpersonal aspect is truly gone. Like the thing that's most, I don't know, it feels like a crap shot now to figure out how to impress people, because it used to be, I think I made a video about it. Like, it's a bad thing to reach out to like hiring managers are offended by you reaching out now. They used to be the bread and butter, you know?
Yeah, for me, they never offended because it's like help you out, especially, if something a little wonky with their application process.
Yeah.
So let me reach out to the person that posted about this job. I'm like, yo, hey, I see you just started here. My name's so-and-so. I got this experience. I think I'd be a good person.
Yeah. I think because in tech now, and I'll give it to your thing about Netflix, right? But I think now in tech, because there's so many people getting laid off and moved around, that now the tips and tricks, again, because of, the internet situation and everything related to tech now, because there's so many people talking about it, it's kind of an oversaturated thing where all of the hidden tips and tricks that people will talk to you about, now everybody doing it. Everybody reaching out to the hiring manager, right? So they get a little bit overwhelmed. But yeah, man, got that opportunity at Netflix, went out there, joined the company, and kind of, went to the win from there.
Yeah, so all right, two things. First,
Yeah.
there had to be a crazy offer for you to say, man, we finna move to the West Coast.
It wasn't, well, one, it was starting out, I think it was like 125, 130. Crazy thing is, bro, we was in Atlanta. We wasn't doing bad in Atlanta. My wife was working multiple jobs. Shout out to her. She was working multiple jobs. She was working at Emory, Choa, and yeah, she was working. So for me as a man, I'm like, all right, bro, like, we got a son now, my wife working multiple jobs, man. Then the cancer aspect of it came on. So then the thought of legacy came. I'm like, bro, I want to leave something behind, right? So that started really to kind of push me. But the biggest thing for me in that, honestly, was just progression. Just like, because we had always, as I mentioned, from Mississippi to Georgia, and then up to Atlanta, it was kind of like, we always kind of been moving around. That was our vibe. And we went out. One thing I didn't mention, my old job, they had bought a business in San Francisco, and I had an opportunity to go out. My wife went with me and my son. That was our first time in California, and we went to, I can't remember where we went to. We went somewhere over the bridge, and it was just beautiful. We like, yo, this is it, right? And we decided, like, yeah, we're gonna be intentional in trying to get out here. Mind you, I already want to go to Silicon Valley because I'm like, I'm elite. In my mind, I'm like, I'm elite. I need to get out here and get this on. You know what I'm saying? Like, be out here with the big dogs. So that worked out. But yeah, it was a good offer. That was my first time breaking over into. So when I was at the startup as that IT manager, I was at 89.9. It was like 89.99, right? And I had a meeting with my manager one day or whatever. I was like, yo, I need like a little bit more because I found out, I talked to somebody at Atlanta Tech Village one day that was right next door. And he mentioned all the stuff that they was doing. And he was talking about they using contractors because it can be expensive. And they was implementing the same stuff out. They rolling out Okta. He's like, yo, we paid a dude like, man, $140,000 for implementation. I'm like, hold on now. Like, just one guy? He's like, we got a whole team. We rolling out Jamf. We paid this young lady like $93,000 on a 12-week project, and then she gave us a roadmap to finish it out for our engineers. I'm like, hold on, I'm doing all of that, and I'm making, $90K, right? My manager was like, probably not right now, maybe next year. But yeah, it was a good enough number for me to say, yeah, we can go ahead and go. Now, when we got there, that was a different situation because the cost of living was astronomical.
Yeah, that's why I was like, were you able to negotiate like a sign-on?
Listen, so the way that they structured the and this might have changed, but the way that they structured it was more so like a contractor versus a full-time employee. So in California, they have some type of law or something where hourly employees get more benefits or whatever the case may be. So I started out as an hourly employee, as an individual contributor. And then from there, you know, even though the salary was big, I still had to hit those hours, right? But then you could also get overtime because, you know, as a tech worker or whatever, I would just stay up after hours working tickets or whatever the case may be. So it ended up being like 160 in my first year or whatever. In that IC role, I wasn't even in the IC role long. I was in the IC role probably like 3 months, and then I got promoted after being out there. But yeah, man, I was ready for something new. I wanted to get to California and wanted to notch that Silicon Valley bucket on get that head on. To kind of, you know, in my mind, add that validity to me as a tech professional.
Chase that dream.
Yeah.
Dream. Yeah. This video is being sponsored by Textual Consulting. Are you still struggling to get into cybersecurity? Are you not getting interviews? Do you have a bad resume? Or is it all the above? Well, if that's you, then we got you covered at Textual Consulting. My name is Henry Davis. I'm a career coach and a cybersecurity professional, and I've helped hundreds, maybe even thousands of people get into cybersecurity with my coaching and my content that you've seen in various places. Now, I specialize in specifically getting people in the blue team. That would be incident response or SOC analyst. I can cover everything from your entry level to your medium to your advanced skills and really help you outperform your resume. You don't believe me? Check out some of these testimonials that I've had from recent clients. So if you're interested, click the link in my bio, techtualconsulting.com/offerings to see what offerings that we have available for you. Now, back to the show. So, man, honestly, like, you know, me and you actually have talked about that experience unfiltered online, like without being as, you know, unfiltered we was on the phone.
Yeah.
How was that experience as far as just what you found out as being like a manager?
Yeah. So being a manager, so I transferred the team that I joined as an IC. I ended up having an opportunity to manage that team, become the manager of that team. And I think I said earlier, one of the biggest things for me was, one, being very transparent, bro. I was super lonely, like going from Atlanta, having a whole hub, people that I was talking to, hanging out with. We lost our whole, like, you know.
Y'all tribe.
Yeah, we lost the tribe. Like, we threw the tribe, like, we like, all right, y'all, we going out here. Threw the tribes to the side, we going to Silicon Valley. Bro, we got out there, we was like, what have we done? We watching planes fly by, like, maybe they going to Atlanta or something, you know? So that part was hard, and then you take COVID on top of that, right? So then that removed your ability to go out and meet people. But then, too, before that, you know, even though we were still going out, people wasn't all that friendly, right? We had a super hard time finding a spot. I was, as the manager, I'm making well over. I'm in the 250s, right? People see this, great credit, 250s, right? You talk to them on the phone, they're like, yeah, come by, right? We looking in Mountain View, bro. We looking in, what's the other spot? San Jose. We looking all over Silicon Valley. We get there, we could be the highest earning couple there. Because my wife was working at Stanford also once we got there, right? We was making over 300, right? No, we don't. This place ain't available. People opening up windows. I think this is going to be too loud for you. You know, they see us and you get a different response. Oh, dang, it just rented. So we had to.
So you felt like, in so many words, there's some discrimination.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. A lot of discrimination. And I wasn't prepared for that because, of course, on TV, when you see about California, you know, like, we're progressive and we're accepting and all of those things. Like, it was the complete. My very first night there, when we were staying in corporate housing, I went to Target in Sunnyvale, and I came out of Target, and there was two police officers, right? And the guy walked up to me, hand on gun, walked up to me coming out of Target, right? Had earphones in. I'm listening to, I think I was listening to like Joe Budden podcast or something. I'm laughing, and he walked up. He was like, "Sir, they called about They said a black male in Target was shoplifting." I'm like, "What? You stopped the only black dude in Sunnyvale?" So it was those types of experiences that was just wearing me down, right? External to work. But then when you got to work, you saw that reflected, right? So again, going back to what it was like being a manager, for me, it was really hard in that because, again, I'm a very boisterous and loud, life of the party type of person. To transition from an IC to a manager because I still had within me this thought of being liked and making people comfortable. So, a lot of times I would go into a room and I would be very, homie, cool with folks. Whereas I should have always had my manager hat on and being, very like forward and like this is what we're going to do and those types of things, which I learned after the fact. But the part that, and I'm fine being transparent about it, the part that got tricky for me there was as a manager, specifically a black manager, right? Especially in 2020 with all that was happening, was finding my footing in being myself and that flowing as a manager and then people being comfortable with it, right?
Yeah, the balance.
Yeah. So as that came through, that started to shine through and, my work was coming through and stuff. Even in that, I ended up having a transition of a manager. So the guy that hired me first was great with, we vibe really well. Then I ended up transitioning to a manager on kind of the second promotion part. So first part, 3 months promoted, another promotion to kind of the global aspect of things. And then with that came another manager, and he was an older gentleman. And in that, we just were not seeing eye to eye because he didn't agree with my methods of management in the way of, hey, I'm not going to micromanage, or hey, I'm not going to be on top. These are adults. Most of them are older than me. These are adults. These people know what they're doing. A lot of them been there longer than me. Most of them still there. Some of them still there, right? In that, there became this thing that I wasn't aware of, again, coming from Atlanta, right? I'm used to, working with other black professionals, and it's a very quote unquote chill vibe, right? To go to this point where this person is, or this environment is very stifling to me, as a professional, right? It feels very, it's like you got a coat on that's too small. It's like, yo, I can't break out of this, right? And as I said, with the discrimination aspect of it, external, you start to see that reflected internal, where it's like, you ain't really got a reason not to, vibe with me. My work good. I'm hitting all the KPIs.
So you felt like it was a culture thing.
It was a culture
fit.
It was a culture thing for sure. One, because, and I think we as black people have to be comfortable understanding. I was talking to my wife about it, this specifically. I think like last week or so, and I think I said to her, we as black people have to get away from the idea of creating in our minds the perfect world and then assuming we live in that reality. Mm-hmm. Because the truth of the matter is,
it's not perfect.
It's not perfect. There are people in the tech industry for real, all industries. But my wife was like, yo, it's the same in Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, and anywhere else, right? But in tech specifically, because in a lot of ways, I think we only represent 7% of the makeup of tech workers, black people, right? When you get into this dynamic, there are so many tricks and traps that we are unaware of in that dynamic specifically, right? So somebody could trick you up in your delivery of, a project or something, right, that you're unaware of, you wouldn't see coming. Somebody could trick you up in company culture specific to a tech company, right, because they're very ambiguous in, like the Facebook thing where they got rid of folks because of the gift card thing, right? It's very ambiguous in that, right? And I think for me, there ultimately I end up getting let go, right? But for me in that situation, the thing that led to that was really, as I said, which prompted my series being green. I had no idea the amount or the level of maneuvers that they had, in their pocket or that could be used not only in corporate America, but tech specifically. And then as a black person, when you are up against the wall like that already, and they're aware of that environment because they come from that, people come from that environment, say in California, Silicon Valley, right? They know that, you ain't comfortable. One, I was being very transparent.
Or they had friends and family that went to Ivy League school.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing too. It really wasn't a lot of people. I think I worked with maybe 2 people. Both were black that went to Harvard. One went to Harvard, one went to Penn State. And these are Ivy League, schools, colleges, right? Both of them were black. Everybody else was like Ed Netflix, community college. There was a person that had like a culinary degree at one point. There was an art major, history majors. These people are working at like these top tier companies. So essentially, in a bigger thought of it, in the reality of it was, these people were just in proximity of these opportunities, right? And these folks are aware of it. So then you end up in a situation where, you are more so battling the culture of the area versus just being able to come in as a person with a degree
Right.
You know, at the time I had a master's degree. Forgot to say that. Did the master's degree as well. Got out there. I'm
Kennesaw.
did the Kennesaw. And then you get there and you're like, all right, I'm poised. Like this is where I'm supposed to be, right? But then that aspect of it, which is where the nonprofit came from, ended up getting let go at Netflix, right? And that came as a result of just a series of, it was like trapdoors, right, that I was unaware of, right? So for example, right, there would be a situation where you would have a meeting, and that was on me again, being green. Where you would have a meeting, and I would ask my new manager, yo, to come to these meetings, right? And in these meetings, I'm very like, we had like a pass the wand thing, right? And I would just let people kind of just vent about what they were talking about, right? And I would get feedback on that, like, yo, that's not, you shouldn't be letting people vent or talk about we were trapped in the house. It was COVID at the time, right? And people being very transparent and like, yo, I'm lonely, I'm having a hard time, like I need, to log on later and stuff. And to me, that was those are valuable insights as a manager because it provides an opportunity for me to support you better. But then for my, manager at the time, he's like, yo, this ain't what you should be doing. And it's making me question whether or not, you should be a manager here and stuff.
Instead of him saying that, did they give you a solution to what you should have been doing?
No, that was no, and that's the thing. I didn't know that, right? One, I didn't know that these things should be, first of all, if your manager, any feedback your manager gives to you needs to be documented. It needs to be documented. It needs to be, if they prefer verbal communication, let it be verbal, and then you follow up with an email or you follow up with some type of written something to make sure that you document that the first time, whether it's good or bad, which I always tell folks that I talk to, always document those conversations with your manager, especially if it's around your performance, especially in tech, because there's a lot of ambiguity in tech that can be, yo, he ain't delivering on time, or yo, I noticed, X, Y, and Z. So, but no, there were no solutions in it. It's just like, I noticed this, I don't like it, see you later type of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask you, because like I said, I've learned through that too. Like I know, like you're right. Like every time if I talk to either my director or my manager, right after that, they're sending an email saying what we talked about, discuss, yada, yada.
Post-conversation summary.
Yeah. Or like, I think maybe in your situation, hindsight's 2020, maybe them probably should have just been one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
And you took them, I don't know if you take things like that, you go to HR and for a post on like how these people are doing since they got to work from home and can't communicate with people.
I mean, so we had this thing that that we created where it was this virtual portal that kind of everybody sat on and they worked. So it was kind of like working together except virtually, right? So for me, again, as a manager, and there's this lady that I follow on IG. I don't know if you follow her as well, but she is like this millennial manager where it's like, no, take your time off. I was that manager where I'm like, no, I have an understanding, which is where that intentionality came in, right, of building up from support at Mississippi State all the way there. It's because you need to be able to fill in for folks, like, right, if I'm going to play the five like LeBron, right, if I'm going to play the five, I need to be able to jump out and play, point guard as well from time to time. So, right, if I had a person on my team, that's what I really hung my hat on, which was, just being easy to work with and likable. That was the biggest part for me as a manager, making sure that I was there to support those folks. So those insights for me were very valuable where, I'm having a hard time, I need to log on later. It's like, okay, I'm up at 7 anyway, so I can, respond to your tickets. I'll drop them in your queue. If it's something I can, take care of from the technical perspective, I know you're the owner of whatever this may be. I'll take care of it as well, and then make sure I drop it in your queue, that type of thing. So I was really building those interpersonal relationships with them. But then again, there was a lot of ambiguity in that, again, that I didn't know how to manage that, or at least to validate that feedback that I was getting around just the interpersonal aspect of things. So, I think it was a situation, honestly, as I said, everybody ain't for everybody. And I think for my new manager, he was a very chill dude, kind of calm. He come in the room like, hi, how are you? I'm coming in like, every meeting he come in, I'm playing music first.
You know what this remind me of?
What's that?
Did you watch Insecure?
Yes. Oh, man.
Do you remember at the time when Molly was at the law firm and the other black girl was there and she was being real loud and all this other stuff, Molly tried to pull her to the side like, hey, yo, yada, 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 and she wasn't hearing it.
Yeah.
And then right after that, you saw them kind of talking to her. I don't know if they let her go or something, but they kind of reprimanded her. Yeah. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. It gets to a point, honestly, bro, and this is a broader conversation for black people in corporate America where it's not to generalize us in any way, but in a lot of situations, we just sometimes don't fit. And you get to a point, that's what it came to for me while being there is like, yo, how much of me am I willing to sacrifice for the sake of this role? For the sake of this role, right? I'm in California. I done moved my family 36 hours across the country, bro. We out here, and at that point, leading up to that, we had moved to LA for the other part of the role. At that point, I loved LA, loved it, right? And it got to a point where it's like, okay, how much of myself am I willing to sacrifice? And I think that's a question a lot of black people come to in corporate, where it's like, okay, I can code switch a little bit, like I can be professional, right? Or what the generally accepted understanding of professionalism is. I can do that. But then it comes to a point, which is what I wanted to mention as well, there in my situation specifically, where we were very transparent in 2020 with black people were very transparent in 2020 with the things that were bothering us, right? The things that we kept internal, the conversations that we would have with our husbands or our wives or our family members, right? Where it's like, yo, George Floyd got killed. And I'm having a hard time working at work today because this is representative. This is bringing up, omens of Trayvon was our Emmett Till, right? Mm-hmm. The Trayvon situation, right? And for our parents, or our grandparents, rather, it was Emmett Till, right? And it's just a continuation of that. So when you are a manager, thinking of the function of managing someone out, whether it's for their technical ability, whatever the case may be, whether you just don't like them, it made it very easy during that time frame to be able to implement the utility of microaggressions, because you aware, I see you woe down already. I see it on you. You look like you've been crying as a manager, right? Looking at paper, you look like you've been crying. I can lean on that a little bit, right? Oh, I noticed, we were in meetings, we had meetings. I have never seen so many instances where people had their hairstyles mentioned, or people would like gaslight other black people, right? Mentioning like, yo, did you see the news? How you feel about that, right? People doing like fake check-ins, and it was wearing black people down to the nub, right? And it got to a point.
See, I've never been played with like that.
Yeah,
because I've been like, oh, you see that last school shooting? Don't
play
with me.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the I don't go tit for tat.
Sometimes you got to though.
Yeah, the thing, man, it's such a hard thing.
You got to draw that line.
Draw that line. Yeah,
because like, hey, don't play with me like that. I won't play with you like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's where the ambiguity exists. That's why it's best to just draw that line of professionalism really early on, so that when situations like that come up, where it's kind of a race-based trick or trap or anything in that regard, you have the foundation to address it on, as opposed to, which in a lot of cases was what a lot of people relied on, you jumping out of character, right? I'm gonna mention this and I'm gonna sit back like, yo, what's the problem type of vibes, right? But for me, man, it got to a point where I was just, you get talked to kind of crazy. Like, I consider myself to be the articulate thing, right? You're very articulate, right?
What does that mean as a black person?
Yes, bro. You start to wear like, what you mean by that, right? Instances, where the feedback that you were given really wasn't actionable. It got to a point for me where it's like, okay, how much of myself am I really willing to adjust? Because the adjustments that I'm being asked to be made is in lieu of me as a person. Like, I am a fun, life of the party, boisterous person, right? I can chill on, jumping in like, yo, how y'all doing or whatever. But what I can't compromise on is being me. And I think I would advise, which is what I do through the nonprofit, as a result of all of those experiences, right? At Netflix specifically, I kind of stepped to the side. One is I was looking for a mentor in my next opportunity. I couldn't find it. It's like, number one, why didn't I know how, what it looks like when someone is intentionally trying to manage you out? Why didn't I know about, these tricks that are being employed when, someone asks you, for example, we had a guy that got let go there, and he was asked to kind of offset all of his work, right, to someone else. And then there was another manager in his manager meetings and stuff. I'm like, why is there no one telling us this stuff, right? So that was the intent out of my experience, right? That's the intent of my nonprofit, which is to be very transparent about, thankful to God, bro, that we were able to get out of that situation and then get right back on track. But everybody ain't so lucky, right? Everybody does not have the same opportunity to go in these situations and make mistakes. It goes back to the twice as good ideology, right? You don't have an opportunity as a black person a lot of times to go into these situations and make mistakes and then come out unscathed, like, woo, like, yo, that was crazy. Let me get back to it. It's a real, transition, where in some cases that I've seen, even where people literally, you can lose your career, especially in tech, bro. You can lose everything off the word of one person. It's literally like a mob in a lot of instances where you look at, FANG situations, right? Where tech is really small. And if you mess up or you make a mistake or you do something that even, moves the needle just a tad bit, word gets out, right? Word travels fast, especially in that circle. There's something else I came to realize too, right? Where, you really have to be very careful and meticulous in the way that you move, in the way that you respond. And then there are other people on the other side that are aware of that fact as well. Where they're like, okay, if I can push this button and I know I'm gonna get this response and I can use that to my advantage to get you out, I'm gonna do that, right? So yeah, it was a wild experience, but I'm definitely thankful for it for sure.
Yeah. And to move on from that, to not beat a dead horse, because we could probably have a whole episode.
Yeah.
Let's see.